hi, hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Jess, and this is another episode of Book CommuniTEA, where I try to keep you abreast of the goings on in the bookish community. Okay, again, new filming setup. Well, life is still in transition. We are in our house. Yay, if you didn't see my video, I do have an update one. I'll link it. This will be my library slash office where I will be working, because I am starting a job literally tomorrow, which is Monday for me, working from home. So I have not designed this space. We got my bookshelves in on Friday, so a couple days ago. And once it was behind me, I was like, you know what? I want to paint them. So the walls are gray, bookshelves white. I've had white bookshelves for a long time. I want to do something different. And so here, 3 colors that I'm considering. And so I'm gonna show you. Ooh, no, I have on boxers. Here, this one is called Privilege Green. The middle one is Bungle House Blue. And this one is Midnight Bayou. Tell me which one you think would look best. I think I'm 99% on one. I'm not gonna tell you which one. I've gotten feedback from my patrons, but I would love to hear what you think. So painting these shelves, and then I'm also thinking about finding a, like peel and stick. I guess it doesn't have to be peel and stick, but wallpaper that'll complement whatever color I choose to put on this wall behind it, so it'll act as like a backsplash, because I don't have backing on these shelves. And a lot of people usually ask, but my husband built this shelf with a friend. Like he drew it out and built it for me. So this one right here is not from any store. I do have other ones. That's not the point of this video, but anyway, filming setups are gonna look different until I get this all set up, which may not be for another month. All of my books are in the hallway, and this is what it is. But I did get new lighting, which is great because it's very cloudy right now, and the window is like to the side. But anyway, that update video will be linked if you want to go watch it. I go into more depth about what's been going on, what will be going on with my channel, but this video is about one thing. So people send me things, tag me in things often on Twitter, and I will bookmark them. So I was like, okay, I need to film a book CommuniTEA video. I know things have been going on. So I went to my first bookmark and I kind of got stuck there. And so this is really about one topic. This is not to say this is more important than others. I did feel like I wanted to speak on this one first, however, and so I was like, okay, let me read this. This is interesting. And then I went and typed in this author's name, and I kept seeing a hashtag. And I was like, whoa, what is this hashtag? And the hashtag was keep this between us. And I'm like, what does this mean? And I clicked on the hashtag and found out it was actually a documentary. So going forward, the majority of the rest of this video is going to speak on things that could be potential triggers to people. So I'm gonna so the documentary is called Keep This Between Us. It is on Hulu. It could be on Disney Plus, but I know for sure it's on Hulu. That's where I watch it. It is 4 parts. And this has to do with a middle grade book called The Crooked Door. So if you don't want to stay for further information, the TLDR of it is there is a middle grade book that is coming out or is out called The Crooked Door. It has 2 authors, but recently one of the authors' names was removed. So it had Brad McClelland and Louis Sylvester, and now it just says Brad McClelland. And why, you ask? It's because Louis Sylvester is a Now, if you want to get into the information on how this is true, stay tuned. And if you don't plan on watching the documentary, this will basically be a spoiler for it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through like each episode, but I'm just going to tell you what happened, especially with him. Probably get off on a tangent because that is me, and then get back to the book and what's going on with it. So like I said, it's 4 parts. And it's following Cheryl, who grew up in Texas, Little Elm. And in high school, she was groomed by one of her teachers, and they were in a relationship she was 16 to 22. And it's just really sad because of how this system works against the people it's supposed to protect, and how this was allowed to happen to her and so many other girls. And not to say it's always men. There are women who have been and are probably predators, pedophiles, but it is often men. So she described him as, well, his wife was a theater teacher who was really cool and everyone got along with. And then I forgot if he started working after that. I think he started working after that and they all got to know him, but he was the cool teacher, you know, he was younger and, you know, hip, and the kids hung out with him. I found it really weird though that a lot of the students actually hung out at their house, like at the teacher's house. And, you know, he was just cool, relatable. If you were having problems, you could talk to him. And then their relationship evolved into something more where I think it was he was going to be away for the summer and he was like, we should keep in contact via email. This was like 1998, 1999, I think. And he set up an email for her so that they could contact each other. And he's like, you can't have your real name on the email. You need to like have a code name, because, you know, that's what people do on the internet, not because I'm a perv and I don't want your real name attached to emails with me. And at first, you know, it's primarily innocuous, and then it gets, you know, more to where it's becoming sexual and inappropriate things. And then, you know, eventually he kissed her and he's married. All of this time, you know, these things are happening and evolving, and she, you know, starts to distance herself from her friends. She's acting weird around family. And of course, by the time she graduated, it's gotten to the point where she's kind of, I would say, isolated herself, but he has isolated her from all of the people around her, and up to where she was thinking about going to school for acting. And he was like, well, I'm moving to Utah. You should go to University of Utah. And her parents were, you know, of course they're worried about their daughter going out of state to college. And she's like, oh, no worries. I'm going to be able to stay with the theater teacher. He and his wife moved to Utah, and she lives in their basement instead of living on campus. Like, already gross that he, convinced her to go to the same place that he was going, but then for her to live in his house. And so she was staying in their basement. She said that's the first place they had sex. And like, eventually his wife did find out. She found the messages probably on his computer between them, and like basically, I guess, printed it out and presented to him in a book, and she divorced him and left. But yeah, they were in a relationship basically until 22. So I'm assuming around the time she finished college. And then she didn't explain exactly how she got out of that or when she decided to move out to LA, but she did. And then once she like reached out and talked to some people from school, because she hadn't been talking to really anyone, realized that it was not just her. There were other girls at her school that he had done this to. And, you know, since then, because I think she's in her late 30s now, she's still, you know, still trying to process and still going through all of these things about, you know, such an important time in your life, 16 to 22, about how those years were taken from her and relationships that were affected and all of this. And so she said one thing she wanted to do was by making this documentary, and to also put it out there for other people to have somewhere to share if this had happened to them. So her friend who is creating this documentary with her, they had someone else, I think that's another friend, share on social media, like, have you ever been in this kind of relationship? And a lot of people wrote in and were happy to just be able to share their story. And then you get into, I forgot if it was at the end of the second episode or the third one, where she connects with another young lady who has an active case. I don't know if is it active? Well, I mean, it hasn't gone to trial yet, against a teacher that abused her when she was in high school, and she was in Florida. And this teacher has these the charges against him were filed in 2016, and they just kept putting it off. The trial is supposed to be in November. Like the criminal trial, because she's also already won a civil suit against the school district because it had been found out that she was not the first one, that he had been at other schools, he had other allegations, and it just got into the whole way the system, schools, how they will just brush it off. Like, they would rather let these disgusting people go and be like, well, just don't do it here and go somewhere else and abuse more children, than to deal with the backlash or the chance that they may get less money from the state. It's not surprising. It's disgusting. I went to a high school in the United States. I remember at least 2 occasions of teachers and coaches who had inappropriate relationships. I said inappropriate relationships with their students. And I was trying to look one up because I couldn't remember his name, and there was nothing about it because I think he just got fired, and then it was like that, like just go. There was nothing else, no charges brought against it. I'm just like, oh my God. And then there were more recent ones. I'm like, of course, because it never ends. So she also mentioned that during her time while they were still in Utah and, you know, essentially dating, that he got fired from his job because he was teaching again. And he was like, well, they accused me of having inappropriate like emails with a student, and like, it's so exaggerated. And she was like, okay. And she, of course, she was so young and naive that she believed him. And then she's talking about now in adulthood looking back and I'm like, of course that was true, and he just, you know, made me believe like they were just out to get him, and there were so many lies. Another thing about this documentary that got me was there was another teacher that they actually did interview in the documentary, because she did reach out to her abuser and through email, and he would talk to her a little bit. Of course, he wasn't in like the documentary, but even in her reaching out, I forgot when they started this project, 2017, 2018. Even in the time she reached out, because she would read off the emails, he was still being so manipulative, because he, in these emails, after all these years, you would think he would have time to think about this and say, you know, I was wrong and that was fucked up and I'm sorry. No, he's like, I was so young and naive and I just didn't even know what we were doing. You were a grown man, you were married, you were put in charge of educating children, and you abused that. And now, even after all this time, you still don't realize how fucked that up. You know what? He definitely realizes it. He's just a fucking asshole and a manipulator, and was still trying to manipulate her all these years later. And she was like, this is, and you obviously can see her growth, because she's like, no, this is bullshit. But there was another teacher at the same school who was in the documentary, who was like a Spanish teacher. He was another young teacher, who was like 26, 27, another cool one that they hung out with and all. And I was getting such weird vibe from him, because he was like, you know, I just find it weird when students, especially, these are not like older college students, these are children, high school students, are hanging out with their teachers outside of school. That is so weird to me. And he talked about that and talking about having a relationship with students, but it was, you know, just, you know, that she could confide in me and she was able to talk to me and we're just really cool. And I'm like, okay. And I guess at one time there was an allegation. He's like, investigate me. And I was like, you are lying, because there's another student who is a friend of Cheryl, the woman who is filming this, who says that he threatened her. It was basically like, I will fail you out of this class if you don't like start poking around, stop talking, because she was worried about her friend, told her parents tried to report it to the school, and the school's like, no, but thank you for coming in though. And he threatened her, and then she wasn't in the class anymore. And he's sitting there like, oh, he can remember all these other things. He's like, I'm looking through my Rolodex of memories and I just really can't remember it. And I was like, you are a suspect piece of shit, because everything he was saying was just giving me vibes. And you find out by the end of it that there have been multiple allegations against him having an inappropriate relationship with students. And she had gone to talk to him filming this documentary, and she even had to like correct him sometimes, because he was like, yeah, I mean, we were young though, we weren't really that much older than you. She was like, you're 13 years older than us. And he did the math, and it was actually 11. He's like, oh yes. He's like, we were basically kids. And she's like, no, you were adults acting like kids. And I was like, that's right. Don't fucking sit there. You were 27. I'm not saying 27, you know everything about the world and you are this, you know, super wise elder, but you know goddamn good enough that at 27, you do not need to be texting, emailing with your 16, 17-year-old students. I don't care if your student's 18, 19. You don't need to be texting with your students, because there's a text thread that was posted by a student, and he's a Spanish teacher, so some of it's in Spanish and some of it's like te quiero, te amo, like I love you, and like besos, kisses. And he's like, but in Spanish, that's just more casual, which it depends on what you use. He said te quiero, and he's like, that's not serious. Like I love you. It's just like love you that you say to friends. I don't care what the text is. You shouldn't be texting a student. And some of them were just a little sus. And he just like, it's nothing. It's just like, you know, I'm there for them. I'm supporting them. No, gross. But yeah, he was lying to her face, and she just was like, I can't believe he just sat there and lied to me. And so anyway, I still think you should watch the documentary because they really just talk about the systems and how hard they will work against victims. Like they were talking about in The Girl Who Has the Case in Florida, how they, you know, hiring all these experts and like psychiatrists and psychologists to say, you know, well, she's fine. Look at her social media posts. She's not depressed. She's not affected by this. Is she trying to say this like ruined her life? She's smiling on Instagram, as if we don't know that social media can be fake, can be a highlight reel of good days. And it's just disgusting. They will go through so many links and even so much money to just make it look like they're not at fault for anything. And I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm still floored that this happens and is still happening, I'm sure. And so I want to keep an eye out for that one that is in Florida, because that trial is supposed to be in November of this year. And I just hope that I think her name was Heaven, because she's just been going through it for so long, filed charges 6 years ago, and they just keep finding ways to push it back. So I hope she can just get a resolution on that. I don't know if you ever get closure from something like that happened to you when you were so young, because she was abused multiple times by him, like they talk about it in the documentary. But Cheryl, yeah, she was like, I want this to, damn it, my battery. I don't know. Okay. During the entire documentary, I kept being like, who is it? What's his name? Like, am I watching the right thing? And she doesn't name him, which is obviously her right not to. I don't know if there's like legal things on why you can't name him. There was no charges to my knowledge that she pressed against him or anything, but his name is Louis Sylvester. And so, like I said, I'll put the book up here. He's co-author with another gentleman. That doesn't, see, this is weird. I have to get used to having carpet for now. Okay, Brad McClellan. Brad put a statement on Twitter that says, I have thought long and hard about the best path forward for me in the crooked door, since this painful information blindsided us all. Based on many conversations with my family and those whose opinions I have trusted, I have made the decision not to move forward with the publication of the book. As I am sure you can understand, I am limited in what I can say. This has been a difficult time for me, my family, and my professional team. I appreciate the understanding and support so many of you have shown. Replies were basically cut off from that, and there were a couple quote tweets, basically people saying you couldn't acknowledge the victim, or are you really limited in what you can use? Someone said, so you feel limited in what you can say, Brad? Really? Is it your publisher? Is it Lewis? Because it's not Disney. If you partner up with a creep, maybe your moral obligation is to remove your books about underage sex and unrequited love. Some people have come out because this is not his first book. He has written other middle grade books. Someone said that yesterday I awoke to the news that in 2017, 2018, I blurbed a book co-written by a man who has apparently turned out to be a sexual predator. I obviously didn't know that at the time. I have taken the steps necessary to withdraw my endorsement of the book and send my regrets and hopes for peace to anyone he harmed. I am the tiniest of tiny players in that situation. It is not about me. Nonetheless, I am a survivor myself, and as a human, I'm nauseated by this. So, I didn't realize that girl was in that. So I don't know. Obviously, we don't know what Brad or the people who were publishing this book knew about him, since this documentary just came out in August. And I don't think there were charges, not at least from Cheryl, filed, but there could have been. I know he was fired from the job in Utah. So right now on Goodreads, it does just say The Crooked Door by Brad McClellan. The cover just has his name, and it says April 2023 from Henry Holt & Co. So I was reading through a thread of someone who was talking about this, and there's a picture of the email when the book was announced, or they were doing the cover reveal that had both of their names. And then obviously now you can see the cover doesn't have his name on it. But this person said, I've reached out to the editor, and I know other authors have contacted the publisher too. At a time when librarians and LGBTQ plus authors are being grossly attacked for being groomers, it would be a sick and twisted irony if this book, co-authored by an actual groomer, proceeds. But then they updated that Brad is no longer going through with the book. But then I read further down, and it reminded me of something that creepy teacher, the Spanish teacher I told you about, said during the documentary. He said, the lines get fuzzy with students. Seems like the don't sexually harass students line is kind of clear, but what do I know? He was saying, like, you know, it seems like the lines are fuzzy, or people are taking it too far, and it's like actually not sexual harassment, but you know, I'm like, You're disgusting. So it sucks for that author. I'm just gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he didn't know of who his co-author was, but now, you know, obviously he's gonna be punished too. Good for him for not going through with this book, because Lewis would have profited from that, and then just that book being in schools. But yeah, sucks for him that he unfortunately wrote with this asshole of an individual and now can't publish that book. I don't know how that works with publishers, like once it's out and has a publishing date and cover and all of that, if you as the author can say no, but he said he will not be moving forward with it, so I'm assuming that it won't be published. Knowing publishing, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, oh, we're just gonna put another author's name on it and publish it anyway. I don't know how that works.
We have an update, and the next few excerpts will be coming from a Publishers Weekly article that was published today, which is Monday, October 17th. So the publisher and co-author have known about this issue since at least the last week of August, but remained silent until it was made public by a third party, Trevane contended. Meanwhile, those of us who had blurbed any of the books were unknowingly endorsing an alleged offender for several weeks without it being considered. How we might all feel about that. When there is reliable, documented evidence that a person has demonstrated inappropriate behavior toward minors, that person should not be permitted to profit, personally or professionally, from an industry whose sole purpose is to cater to minors, Kelly told Publishers Weekly via email. It should also be noted that innocent authors and librarians are currently under attack by extremists who accuse them of being sexual predators simply for stocking books with queer characters. I could not sit back and watch these authors and librarians navigate such disgusting accusations while an author who is accused of actual grooming quietly profits from publication. Questions remain about advances and royalties and about the fate of the co-author's 3 existing back titles, which are still available on bookstore and library shelves. After Macmillan quietly removed author Louis Sylvester's name from a forthcoming middle grade novel from Henry Holt Books for Young Readers in light of a Hulu documentary that contained evidence of his predatory conduct at a Texas high school starting in 1999, publication of the book has been canceled. Macmillan Children's Publishing Group in turn released a statement saying Brad McClellan has decided not to go forward with the publication of The Crooked Door. We understand and respect his decision, and we continue to support his work. Neither McClellan or Macmillan wish to comment further at this time.
But I just wanted to speak on that because people are just using words so willy-nilly. Recently, there was, I think, a tweet from Ulta. Do they have a podcast or a YouTube channel? And I don't know the individual's name who was interviewing them, but Dylan, you probably know him from TikTok, is a trans woman. And so they're talking about like girlhood and girly, just, I don't know, girly things. And people are like, oh my God, I've spent so much money in Ulta, boycott Ulta. I've seen the most ridiculous responses. Like, I took a screenshot of some of them. They said woman face. So like instead of blackface, woman face is hate. It harms women and girls. It's female appropriation. Enough is enough. Men can use makeup. No one has an issue with that. Men can't become little girls. Ulta is going for the pedophile demographic, apparently. Where are you getting these numbers that trans women or trans people at all are pedophiles? Because it is more often than not cis men. Sometimes cis women, but literally this documentary about a cis man. Priest, cis men, okay? People in all religious institutions, usually cis men who abuse and harm people, harm children. So I don't want to hear about it, okay? So this is just something that I was like, wow, I am shocked. I am shocked. So anyway, hopefully that book doesn't get published. Hopefully Lewis faces some kind of consequence because he's a piece of shit. And hopefully all of these women are able to somewhat live a fulfilling life and not let these dirtbags bring them down and win. But I don't know what you do when the entire system works against you as a victim. So yeah, I know that was not a normal episode. It was just, kind of short and sweet, but that might be the new with me starting a job. I don't know if I have the energy to make longer videos that take a lot of reading and researching and editing all the clips together. So it might just be, who knows actually, I don't know. I didn't even think I was gonna film this video today, but I did. So anyway, how about you post in the comments some recent middle grade or young adult, actually any age category, any recent releases that you haven't heard a lot about. So books that have come out that you're not hearing about, or that you've read recently that are newer releases that you think are really good and need some more hype. And let's do that. Let's share that in the comments. If you want to share a little bit about what it's about, whatever, people can look it up, and then we can find people who actually deserve attention and deserve readership and promote those books. So I appreciate you if you watched this whole video. If you did watch the documentary, you had any other thoughts or comments, please let me know. And as always, stay blessed, hydrated, moisturized, and sunscreened, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.